Hello, this is AstrologerCoach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming new moon, which will be exact at 4.5 degrees of Scorpio on October 27th at 11:39 p.m. New York time, so really late at night. And so that will already be October 28th at 3:29 a.m. London time. So nice and early in the morning in Europe and really late at night on the East Coast in America and Canada. So the new moon is always an introverted time when we go within to learn what we wish to align ourselves for the next 28 days. So it really helps us to kind of get quiet to see what are the energies doing, what am I wanting to connect with for the next lunar month. And we also talk about setting intentions and the best times to do so towards the end of this video. So stay tuned if you are interested in that. And also take advantage of the timestamps that I have added to the description part of this video in case you want to watch the video in shorter sequences, because it might be a little bit too long to watch it all in one go. Now, the new moon is in passionate all or nothing Scorpio, and that brings our focus to intimate relationships and our deepest emotional desires. So Scorpio is the second water sign of the zodiac, so it relates not only to the depth of our own psyche, but also to the ecstasies and traumas of relationships. So some very deep, intense stuff that can be connected to Scorpio. Now, Mercury in Scorpio is exalted at the time of the new moon because it's stationing, it's slowing down to get ready for its 3-week retrograde phase. So we are more aware of our thinking patterns at that time, particularly our tendency to think in extremes or absolutes, because Mercury is in Scorpio, right? So Mercury will come to a halt on October 31st and start that retrograde phase. But while it's exalted between October 24th and November 4th, you really want to check in with yourself and just ask yourself a couple of questions. For example, is my mind drawn to worst case scenarios right now? Or am I obsessed over something that feels disempowering? And what are my motivations in general? Like, what am I motivated by as I'm moving through life? Again, during that station phase, right? Am I coming from fear? Am I coming from self-protection? Or am I coming from a place of love or passion? So these are all things you can kind of like connect with, and feel free with these questions to either journal on them, to meditate on them, or to just simply pose the questions without needing to necessarily have an answer right away to them, but to allow the questions to kind of like be in the background, or to just have a space for an inquiry with these questions and see what comes up. Now, what would it be like to live life fully and completely feeling empowered in my choices as I'm moving through this Mercury station and retrograde phase? And what will get me 1% closer to that right here, right now? Now, speaking of here and now, if empowerment only existed in the now moment, right? If you cannot look for empowerment anywhere else but in the now moment, could I surrender my fears of concerns connected to the past or the future and simply be present in the here and now? Just experiment with that. If that question resonates with you, experiment to see what happens when you do that, right? So just keep asking that question. And what if I trusted my higher self enough to release any suspicious, fearful, or protective thoughts that may arise right now? Okay, so we have some questions here, right? Lots of questions that we can engage with, and that there will be more coming. But just for now, check to see, are you okay right now? This is an experiment that you can do as Mercury is going through Scorpio, stationing, retrograding, stationing again. through its shadow phase, like all these different phases. Mercury is in Scorpio for a long time this year. So what you can do as an experiment, as Mercury is traveling through Scorpio, am I okay right now? Whatever thoughts pop up, come into your consciousness, am I okay right now? And if I am, is it at least possible that I will be okay in the next moment and the next? So these are some great questions when we're dealing with the intensity of the Scorpio energy. Now, feel free to also check out my video presentation about the upcoming Mercury retrograde phase to see how all of this might be impacting you personally, your own birth chart. And if you want to purchase that webinar, click on the link below this video in the description part of the video. Before you actually invest in the whole 99-minute webinar, feel free to also watch a 23-minute excerpt of the webinar, which is available via my YouTube channel. Or again, you can also click on the link below this video. There will be another link for the excerpt as well. Now, if you're already a star or superstar member of my online community, then check your email, your inbox, junk mail, promotional folders, whatever you got. And because I send out a link to the MP4 video recording on the day when we did the forecasting forum. And enjoy watching that if you haven't seen it yet. All right. Now, back to the new moon. Scorpio also deals with our shadow issues, of course, as I've mentioned many times before. And the shadow is all the suppressed and denied or undeveloped qualities of our personality. So anything that we've sort of like taken and gone, nope, I don't want to go there, or I can't really connect with this energy, or that's not what's okay for me in this society or in the upbringing that I've enjoyed to express. This is all stuff that gets suppressed and becomes shadow material. And so wherever we have yet to fully integrate this disowned aspect, we do feel disempowered and we're left really vulnerable to manipulation or domination with those aspects of ourselves. So it's really important actually to integrate these parts of ourselves. And then also what we reject, of course, within ourselves, we often project onto other people. Because these energies are within us, somehow they have to be experienced, whether we experience them consciously and on purpose, or whether we experience them through other people. They will be, these energies will be experienced because they're our energies. So we have to connect with them somehow. So we either do this ourselves or through our relationships. So we may experience the shadow as sometimes, if it's certain extreme situations where the shadow has been very much suppressed and it needs to be heard or it needs to come out, we could experience that as an explosion with other people or as an implosion within ourselves. And so what you could say here is that which we disown owns us on some level, because it's sort of like it either feels empowering or it feels disempowering. So whatever we resist also persists, because very often these disowned parts of ourselves are things that we actually have been resisting to integrate or to be with. And so these energies tend to persist because they keep coming up, whether that's within ourselves or through other people. So what shadow issues need to be addressed over the next 4 weeks, right? Because we are dealing with Scorpio and we're dealing with many planets in Scorpio as well. So here are some questions that could help you reclaim your projections. Who really bothers me out there in the world? And this could be someone that you don't know at all, like a famous person or someone that you've never had an actual interaction with. But it could also be people that you actually know, like could even be family members or a significant other, who really bothers me out there in the world. And who do I love to hate? And sometimes we have moments with our intimate partners where we love to hate them too, right? So it's not just strangers that we love to hate. And then what specifically bothers me about those people? What specifically bothers me when I have this moment of, I really hate this person, or I really hate this attitude or this behavior or whatever it might be, right? What specifically bothers me about them? And how do those characteristics relate to me? And this is a very important question because that's how we start to own our own shadow. Because the moment we say, oh, this is so not me, or I'm not doing that ever, or that's just not me, we actually keep the shadow in place and we keep rejecting it in that moment. But when we actually investigate to see how is that related to me, how is there something inside of me that needs to be expressed in that way, or that needs to go in that direction at least? Maybe not fully the same way as the other person is doing it, but how about if it were able to turn the volume up or down on those characteristics? What number on the volume would be a healthy level for each of these volume settings, right? So I like to talk about volume settings because I find that really helpful in terms of seeing, like, sometimes when something's set too high, it might not be a healthy expression of that particular energy. But when we start to actually tune down the vibration or the energy of that particular thing, we actually meet with a healthy expression of that, right? So an example could be narcissism, right? If someone is extremely narcissistic and they only think about themselves and nobody else, and they are only capable of really seeing things from their own perspective, and they have no capacity to actually connect with other people from their perspective, then that's a very extreme way of connecting with people, right? So if you hate people that are narcissistic, then you have to ask yourself, like, if I turn that volume down a little bit, what would be the healthy expression of narcissism? And the healthy expression of narcissism is saying, like, I'm awesome, I'm really great in the things that I do and think and say, and but doesn't mean that you're not capable of also relating to other people. Doesn't mean that you're not capable of also being in another person's world. When you live it out in a healthy way, you have a healthy connection to your own self-identity and you feel good about yourself, right? So that's the healthy part of narcissism. And when it's turned down too low, right, we tend to have something like people going like, oh, I don't, that's not really my thing, and no thank you, like I really can't do that, and I'm not really good at that, and I'm not, no thank you, that's okay, right? So then we have that side, that's the when the volume is turned down too low, right? Then we get the expression of like, no, please, like it's okay, like this very strong sense of being humble, but humble to a default, right? Where it's not necessarily healthy humbleness anymore. So you can see how the volume can be turned up and down and turned to a healthy degree. So that's just an example. So some other questions in the same spirit would be, who do I admire and why? Because sometimes we project things that we can't be with in ourselves onto other people that are also positive, beautiful things. What scares me about myself could be another really great shadow question, right? What scares me about me? Is there anything where you think, oh God, I hope I never get too much this way or too much that way? What scares you about yourself? And what reoccurring, uncomfortable, or scary dreams or daydreams do I have? So just investigate that. And as best as you can with these shadow things, try not to judge. Try not to go into this place of like, oh my God, I'm horrible, I'm terrible, right? Like just see it as like a curious thing of like, wow, I have these daydreams, these scary night dreams that are a part of my personality that I have a hard time integrating, right? So just be gentle with yourself when you ask these questions. And then one more question, what do I love to joke about that feels just a little bit uncomfortable, right? So when you notice that you make a joke and there's a part of you that goes, maybe not super appropriate, right? If it feels a little uncomfortable, it just means that it touches a part of the shadow of you that is asking to be integrated. And actually, humor is a wonderful way to integrate our shadow parts, because humor doesn't hurt anybody, and it's actually quite a relief, because we're actually, when we're laughing, we're relaxing and we're letting something go. And that's very much in the spirit of Scorpio, let it go. So humor can be a wonderful way to discover our shadow parts and to start to integrate them. Now, noticing our own desires, our own fears, our sense of humor, that is important, because the shadow also makes itself visible through all of those things, right? So just observation is really wonderful with these things. Now, with the new moon making also an opposition to Uranus in Taurus, the issue of projection might be heightened with this new moon. Uranus is the archetype of revolutionary change, daring us to think way, way outside of the box, to do something completely different from how other people do them. And so we may find that we disagree with other people's values, Uranus and Taurus, right? We may be restless, even anxious, and therefore we might feel pressure to act or react regarding others, because an opposition, of course, always happens in relationship with other people. And so these feelings could also be connected to financial decisions or financial partnerships. So just pay attention to what shows up and see if you can bring some kindness to your interactions with other people. And so if you experience fear or uncertainty in any of your relationships or partnerships, focus on what it is that you could really get excited about or get behind in a realistic, grounded kind of a way. Something that could make a difference, something that could be meaningful for you and for the partnership. And as best as you can, be open to receiving feedback from others during this time. Because there's a tendency here with this opposition that we may not want to hear what other people have to say, because it might not be in alignment with our own values. But if we stay open and if we actually allow that feedback to come through, we might discover that, oh, okay, well, this might not be in alignment with me, but maybe there's some little gold in that conversation or in that feedback that we're receiving here. Now, if you get entangled in controversy with other people in these next 4 weeks, ask yourself, how open-minded and flexible could I allow myself to be right now? So if that happens, just ask yourself that question. And what might be some alternative tools that I could employ that might allow for greater freedom or diversity in my life, financially or otherwise? So again, something to just contemplate as you get entangled in controversy with another person. And if you want to have access to the new moon questions from this video in writing, and maybe also to the full moon videos that I do 2 weeks after the new moon, feel free to check out the various levels of membership that are available still on my website at astrologercoach.com. There's still discounts available. And if you're already a member, check your membership portal by signing into your account, my account on the website or via your phone, and you will find all my posts inside the My Content tab. If you're a member, just click on that My Content tab in your account page and everything is going to be there. And the new moon questions are available via the New Moon in Scorpio article. So feel free to go to that article and you will find all the questions listed there. And I will also have some bonus questions that are only going to be available via the New Moon in Scorpio article. So if you're a member already, then take a look at those bonus questions too. Now, back to the new moon. We also have 2 Quincunx-aspects in this new moon chart. And so this indicates that we are feeling uncomfortable and are looking for solutions where none seem to be had. And so this is an inner conflict. It's an internal conversation that we're kind of having with ourselves that is not easily resolved. And so we feel this nagging sense of discomfort inside of ourselves. And so the more aspects there are that are quincunxes, of course, in a new moon chart, the more that will be true. So the best way to deal with quincunxes is not to keep looking for an exact solution, but to keep looking for ways to feel okay when things are not an exact match. Does that make sense? So the first of these two quincunxes is between the new moon in Scorpio and Chiron in Aries. So this could create a drop in our self-confidence and self-esteem, possibly leading to some unexpected emotional reactions, because, you know, with Chiron, we sometimes can get a little bit triggered in terms of our old childhood wounding. So as best as you can, be kind and compassionate with yourself as much as possible. Forgive yourself for having a human moment. Forgive other people for having human moments if this happens with another person. But this might happen, you know, also within yourself as well. This might be like an inner process. So if you can give yourself forgiveness and compassion, that will definitely support your healing process when it comes to, you know, outbursts of anger or anything in connection with assertion. So what you can ask yourself here is, what if accepting my own limitations and insecurities lead me down unique paths towards a healthy sense of identity, assertion, and independence? In other words, towards a healthy masculine. So what if accepting my own limitations and insecurities could lead me down some of these unique paths towards a healthy masculine? So identity, assertion, independence. So what steps could I take on that healing path right here, right now? And this, obviously these questions are going to be more powerful when you ask them, you know, around the time of the new moon or after the new moon. Now, the second quincunx is between Mars and Neptune in Pisces. And Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio, so that's an important planet in this new moon chart. And it's currently in Libra. So Libra and Pisces, right? It creates a quincunx. They're not compatible. So our idealism and high expectations could lead us into places of emotionally and physically draining frustration. So as best as you can, allow for downtime, allow for rest and spiritual replenishment. That's really going to be very helpful. So ask yourself, how could I give myself some space around connecting with others, around introspection? And could I maybe even create a retreat on whatever scale is available to me at this time? And this is important because, you know, for some of us, we might not be able to like just take off and go on vacation, or to just take a day and not do anything and just replenish our, you know, spiritual energies or our physical energies. So whatever that retreat time could be for you, it's important to just give yourself whatever you can, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes every day. You know, it's okay if it's not a lot, because a little bit makes a big difference in this incident, right? With this aspect. Now, could I grant myself kindness no matter what choices I make? This, of course, kindness is always an important thing, and it's very much connected to Neptune. It's connected to a lot of things in our chart, but you know, kindness is always a good path to walk. Now, if I start to feel overwhelmed, and this is the really important question as well, because this could likely happen with this aspect. If I start to feel overwhelmed, how could I remind myself to take a pause that realigns me with the present moment and helps me draw on my trusted inner guidance? Because we're going to be very much pulled between this like extroverted, introverted. You know, Mars in Libra is very much a focus on the extroverted connection with other people and the ideal relationship or the ideal one-on-one interaction or partnership. Whereas Neptune in Pisces is very much about going within and wanting us to kind of connect with our higher self, with our intuitive self. So it's an inner process. So if I feel overwhelmed, how could I remind myself to take a pause that realigns me with the present moment and helps me draw on my trusted inner guidance? Great question. And with all my questions, I also want to say, only use the questions that absolutely resonate with you. If a question doesn't resonate with you, feel free to completely ignore it. So even if I say it's a great question, feel free to ignore it if it's not a great question for you, right? So don't feel like you have to necessarily use a question just because I think it's a good one. Make this a very personal choice, because you will know right away when a question pulls you in. When a question pulls you in, it's either a question where you go, oh, yeah, cool question, right? Or it's a question where you have a really strong reaction. Usually when we have a really strong reaction, that's a question that we want to engage with, because that means there's something pulling on you with that question. All right, so let's talk about a couple of other more aspects here, and feel free to take a break if you need to. Mars also makes a square to Saturn in Capricorn. So this signifies a maturity process that demands adjustments and flexibility on our part. And we tend to be more cautious now and may experience a temporary loss of enthusiasm, especially within our one-on-one connection with other people. And we're invited to live life in moderation, which might be frustrating at times. So what you can ask yourself here is, what happens when I push too hard? Or do things unfold faster when I get impatient? What if anxiety was hiding behind impatience? And if that were so, what might I be afraid of happening? And what might slowing down do for me just for the next 10 days? And the reason why I say for the next 10 days here is because that's when the aspect will be the strongest. So within the new moon energy, the first 10 days of that new moon energy, it will be the strongest. And then how might a mature approach with healthy boundaries support my dealings with others? So just something to contemplate and to maybe journal on or connect with. You see how you feel. Now, historically speaking, Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio, but since 1930, Pluto took that title as the modern ruler of Scorpio. So we want to talk about Pluto, of course, in this new moon chart. And Pluto is now journeying through Capricorn since 2008. Together with Saturn and the South Node right now, the Saturn and the South Node are currently also in Capricorn and will still be until next year, until 2020. And all of these planets are currently making a sextile to Neptune in Pisces. And Pluto is also making a sextile to Venus in Scorpio. So we have a bunch of sextiles. So what does all of this mean? Let's just unpack that. So this really presents an opportunity, right? Sextile is an opportunity. We want to take action on something. We want to take advantage of an opportunity, right? So this presents an opportunity to notice how obsessed we've become about manifesting something real, and also to let go of fears connected to our long-term goals. This transit supports our moving from survival mode to a passionate engagement with life and the society we belong to. Because Capricorn has to do with the society that we belong to. And so a passionate approach is really key here. Pluto in Capricorn, passionate approach as much as possible. But surprisingly, perhaps, it's also important that we empower other people, that we empower other people around us. And not just people we know, but people that are part of our society. Let's empower people, right? That's what Pluto wants us to do. It wants us to bring up all the unconscious shadow stuff that's going on in our society, and it wants us to connect to everybody and everything, to all the shadow parts in society, and to empower each other as best as we can through acceptance, through love, through passion, through compassion. So ask yourself, is it at least possible that a trusting emotional connection with others might create more authentic and passionate engagement around what I'm building for the long term? Great question for all that Capricorn energy, for all that Pluto and Capricorn energy. Now, what might transform if I focused 5% more on what I actually have control over? And what roles do self-responsibility, realistic self-assessment, and healthy boundaries play in all of this? So something to kind of experiment with or to look for in the next 4 weeks. And then to sum it all up, this new moon in Scorpio invites us to let go of whatever is dead or toxic in our lives. Often this is connected to past disempowerments, fears based either on what was or on a possible future in which we would not be okay. And all this can be scary and stir up a desire for control. Because when we're scared, very often we want to, like take control. But the survival brain thinks that control brings us to a place of strength and power, right? It brings us to a place of certainty or stability. But unfortunately, that's just all based on fear. That's actually an illusion. So remember, fear is resistance to life. It's when we're resisting something that was or that will be, or something that's happening in the moment. But very often fear is actually not connected to what's actually happening in the moment. We think it's connected to the moment, but really if we look a little bit closer, we can see that whatever we think is connected to the moment is actually connected to something from the past or is connected to the future. So remember, fear is resistance to life, whereas love is acceptance of life in all its forms, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And look, I'm not saying that it's easy to always be in acceptance of everything that shows up. It's not easy. It takes a lot of heart opening and a lot of loving yourself, actually, that helps you get into a place of love with all of life in all its forms. It starts here, right? You have to start with yourself. And sometimes the way we learn is through our relationships. We learn to accept and embrace the good, the bad, and the ugly through our intimate relationships or through our very close relationships in life. But it also comes back down to like, can I reintegrate that part that I see in the other person inside of me and start to accept and love that part within me? So ask yourself, as best as you can, could I acknowledge any self-resistance? Resistance towards others, towards life itself? And just for right now, could I simply let go of wanting to resist what is? Could I set all inattention free? Everything that feels kind of, whether it's in my throat or in my chest or in my stomach or further down in my groin or legs or wherever it might be, my shoulders, could I just set all inattention free? Just as best as I can, and just for right now, and just as an experiment in freedom. And so if you do end up working with some of the shadow issues, or you come across some of the shadow stuff with other people, these questions are going to be very helpful to kind of engage with and use as something comes up, right? Now, the key is to realize with all of this that letting go is not about loss. It's not about losing something or having to give something up even, but it's about transformation and ultimately about feeling empowered, since every ending is also a new beginning. When we're allowing ourselves to let go, or when we're allowing ourselves to surrender to something, to some emotional tension inside of us, when we allow ourselves to surrender to that, we actually start to feel more empowered. Something starts to shift internally. There's a transformative process that starts to happen. And of course, this is something we kind of have to experience and explore. The mind is not necessarily going to give us that experience, right? So just understanding it and understanding what it means doesn't mean that we can actually do it, right? So we have to really allow ourselves to experiment here and to explore that, in our lives. Now, trust, of course, with Scorpio always plays a big part. And with all of the Scorpio issues, when it comes to our shadow, when it comes to empowerment, disempowerment, trust plays a big part here, just as it does in all of our intimate relationships and authentic connections. And trust, whether it is in ourselves or in other people, is something that develops over time. Trust is not necessarily something that we just can do, at the snap of a finger, and especially not for those of us who have experienced traumatic events or circumstances in the past. That process always takes a little bit longer, right? So if you've been through very traumatic things in your life, then just know that trusting is something that will take a little bit longer for you. And make sure to also communicate that to the people in your life, because they don't know. They don't know that trust is something that is hard for you. They don't know that it takes longer for you to get there. So make sure that you're being authentic and that you are acknowledging it, that you're owning that, and that you're saying, yes, that's where I'm at. Now, as best as you can, allow yourself to integrate all of who you are, even those parts that seem connected to memory of past disempowerments and pain. Allow those parts to feel safe and loved. There's really nothing to defend or to protect. It just seems that way. It's sort of like an illusion that we think we have to defend or protect something, but there's nothing to protect, because you are actually okay right here, right now. So we're most connected to our inner power and passion for life when we don't reject any aspects of ourselves, not even the part that we think are ugly, ridiculous, or shameful. So some last questions you can ask yourself here is, what would it look like if I embraced the full range of human emotion? The full range. What would allow me to more consciously work with my emotions, whether they're good, bad, or ugly? And if I had the courage to do this, and it takes courage, let's not fool ourselves here, right? That's why Mars was the traditional ruler of Scorpio, because Mars has to do with courage. If I had the courage to do this, what might the reward be? And what if true intimacy with another were only possible when I allow for the full range of my emotions? So true intimacy, like that intimacy where you really connect to each other in a very beautiful, strong, passionate way. What if that were only possible when I allow for the full range of emotion? What if my capacity for love and joy grew exponentially in relation to my ability to embrace my fears and my pain? So again, just something to kind of investigate and be with, and just see what comes up as you're asking these questions. Now, flexibility and open-mindedness will definitely help for the next 28 days. Also, embracing our humanity and practicing self-compassion, especially around our inner processes and limitations. That will also provide an opportunity for healing. So if you do have an ascendant or any personal planets in 2 to 7 degrees of Scorpio, Taurus, Leo, or Aquarius, then this new moon is definitely going to impact you more so than other people. But if you don't have a any ascendant or any personal planets in those degrees or signs, take a look in your natal chart, in your birth chart. Where does 4.5 degrees of Scorpio land in your birth chart? Take a look at that, because the house placement of the new moon will indicate which area of life is most impacted for the next 28 days. So that could be very helpful to know. You can also check out my 30-minute class on how to read your birth chart if you don't know how to look that up, because that class actually will show you how to, look that up in your birth chart. And at the end of the class, it will also show you how to get a free birth chart online if you don't have one yet. And you can get free access to this class via my homepage at astrologercoach.com. Just scroll down all the way until you see a box that says free class, and then click on that, and that will be your class on how to read your birth chart. Now, before we talk about intentions, let me just very briefly mention that Jupiter, which is currently in Sagittarius, will be moving into Capricorn in the beginning of December for a whole year. Jupiter always takes a whole year in each sign, and will be joining Saturn and Pluto and the South Node in this very sobering, perfectionistic, and ambitious sign. So if you are curious how this might impact you personally, please join us either live on November 13th at 1 p.m. New York time or 6 p.m. London time. Or you can also get an MP4 video presentation of this live event. Either way, register on my homepage at astrologercoach.com, scroll down to Forecasting Forum Countdown, and click on the Register Now button. And then that will take you to that page, and then you can purchase that forum and can join us in either live or via the recording to watch all about Jupiter and Capricorn in relationship to your own birth chart. Now, let's talk about intentions for this new moon cycle. The new moon is always the best time to set intentions for any new moon cycle. And as always, it's best done right after the new moon becomes exact, and definitely not during a moon void of course phase. Now, in order to know when the moon void of course phases are, you can either follow the instructions that I'm giving now, or you can also look to see on my blog page when I talk about the weekly forecasts. Whenever there is a moon void, of course, that's just make sure you don't set new moon intentions at that time. So this month, the best time to set intentions would therefore be between 11:39 p.m. on October 27th and 1:34 p.m. on October 29th. So that's a really nice long window here for setting intentions without any moon void, of course, being present. So that's really wonderful. And then again, there's another window from 5:58 p.m. until 11:39 p.m. on October 29th as well. So all of this is New York time, US East Coast time. If you do live in a different time zone, then please feel free to either look that up online. There is time zone converters, or if that's not your thing, if that's a little bit too complicated for you, then feel free to join me via my Facebook fan page or my Twitter page. I will be posting reminders when it's the best and most potent time to set these intentions several times on my Facebook fan page and my Twitter page. So when you read those reminders, just know that now is the time to set it. Now is the time for you to sit down and write that down. And if you want to have more information about setting intentions, how to do that, go to my website, go to my blog page, and then look for astrology articles, or look for the tag New Moon Intentions. You will find that from a computer on the right-hand side of the blog page, and from your phone, it's at the very bottom of the blog page. You have to scroll all the way down. So unfortunately, that's where it is. But yeah, that's how you can find that article, and that will tell you a little bit more about how to do that if you haven't done it yet. All right, so if you want to sign up for my free monthly newsletter, that's an option. You can do that via my homepage at astrologercoach.com, or you can email us at info@astrologercoach.com and just write newsletter in the subject line. My newsletter goes out approximately once or twice a month with either special offers, my new moon videos, announcements about forecasting forums or retreats or anything new that's happening with courses or whatever I'm doing. Yeah, so that's basically the newsletter. And then if you have any general questions about astrology or about the new moon, feel free to email me at info@astrologercoach.com. If you have any personal questions that require of me to pull up your birth chart, then please book a reading via my website at astrologercoach.com. There's a services tab that you can click on and then go to the readings there. Or if you have any questions connected to what's coming up within the next 30 to 40 days, then feel free to join our monthly forecasting forum on November 13th, and you can ask questions there as well. Okay, so all of that's available. You will also get access to the new, to the next members full moon video when you register for the monthly forecasting forum. So that's something I should mention as well, because that's a bonus. And that's it for this new moon. Remember, it's an introverted time. My members will see me within the next 2 weeks around the time of the full moon, a little bit before, so we can look at how far we have come since setting our new moon intentions. And everyone else will see me in about 4 weeks from now for the next new moon. All right, have a good one. Have a fantastic new moon, and remember to align yourself with the new moon energy as you're setting those intentions. All right, have a good one. Namaste.